Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming. This is the Clawson Charter Commission, and it is our meeting 21. I call the meeting to order, and if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and words of inspiration. Yeah. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We ask blessings on the people who have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. Keep in mind, because we all forget from time to time, that we're not only leaders, but also servants, and that is our responsibility to serve the common good of all. Grant us the wisdom and the courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May we speak out when it is time to speak out, and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. This we strive for in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true.
Amen.
Thank you.
I do. We need prayers. Lots of it. We need lots of prayer. I agree. It can't be a prayer.
Roll call when you're ready.
Bolin,
Here.
Dwyer,
Here.
Hanser Maynard,
Here.
Irwin,
Here.
Marucci, here, Nasri, O'Neill,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Chairwoman Selensky.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. First part of new business is that we have two guests tonight. We have Mike Smith from the AEW and Trevor you're from DPW, right?
Correct.
Yes, okay. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you coming in. And could you tell us a little bit about what you do for the city? To give us a little bit of background.
You want to start? I am the superintendent of the DPW, so I'm in charge of the DPW as well as the engineering side.
Okay.
So I work with Mike on the engineering stuff and then also every aspect of the DPW, so road, streets, maintenance.
Okay.
I'm Mike Smith with Anderson, Eckstein and Westrick, the city's engineering consultant. Pretty much I'm in charge of any of your engineering related items, including site plan reviews for the planning commission, engineering plan reviews for private developments within the city, your infrastructure and such.
Okay. Excellent. What we've done in the past is we've opened it up to the commissioners to ask their questions, if they have any questions of you, and then you can also, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask them.
Okay.
Does anybody want to start with any questions that they have?
I guess the most obvious question would be, is there anything you can think of that we can do and put in a new charter together that would benefit you?
I don't know if there's anything necessarily that would benefit me. I did come to this meeting, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to review, so I did review a few of the sections that were related to streets, sidewalks, the utilities and such. I tried to locate anything that may be obsolete or doesn't apply anymore. And I found a few things that we could probably discuss.
Okay.
Maybe deleting or maybe modifying the verbiage and how it's written in the charter. I guess starting off with chapter 10, streets and sidewalks. I didn't really see anything in there. Everything looked pretty good. Going on to chapter 11, sewers and drains. That one was pretty good as well. Water supply in chapter 12. Right in the first paragraph, it caught my eye about, there's a little paragraph talking about a pumping station. I think the city had a pumping station many, many years ago, but that no longer exists.
Okay.
So that could be removed.
What section did you say that was, just so I can,
12.01.
thank you.
And then chapter 13, franchises and public utilities. Throughout the document, I noticed there's reference to railroads and street railroads. I believe the city used to have a railroad up and down Main Street.
Streetcar. Yeah, it was actually a streetcar.
Streetcar many years ago. I know when we resurfaced 14 and Main 5 years ago, we came across some of the old tracks under the pavement.
Oh, wow.
We still have that.
You still got that piece? Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Need to put that out for show and tell.
Antiques.
Yeah, but there's references to these railroads that can be removed from the charter. If you'd like, I've highlighted everything. If you want, I could go through each, you want me to reference each section?
I would.
Okay, so under 13.06, there's a couple references of railroads that could be deleted. Under 13.09, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 references. And it talks about tracks or railway or railroad.
Mike, I think that was called the Detroit Interurban. I was just asking Wayne, was the name of the railroad.
Was it?
And actually, that was called a funeral car because Dolores, who used to be the curator of the museum, she had a picture of a car that had a vault in the back that you could put the coffin in and it would bring you down to the, because it ran on Main Street, down Rochester Road, it would bring you down to the cemetery. It's really sort of strange. Yeah.
And when it got to Clausen, it was in the line. So they would actually get out and spin it around and then go back the other way.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, what are those round, what do they call them? Round?
Yeah, but manual.
With manual.
Manpower.
I wrote it.
Then in section 13.15, there's a couple references to the city providing heat for the inhabitants. Not sure what the city used to provide in terms
Buckets of coal.
maybe, but I know you don't provide heat to your residents, so that could probably be deleted out of there. There's two spots in that section where it applies.
Sounds like the whole section might be in question.
Yeah,
Heat and power, gas.
Yeah, it's just some obsolete references that need to be looked over and deleted. And then, I guess going on to chapter 14, contracts. I guess section 1402, it states that contracts exceeding $1,000, plan specifications, prerequisite public inspection, pretty much says that anything over $1,000 needs to be approved by council. I don't know if that really applies in all cases, or is being followed to the T.
Or maybe it should be raised.
Or maybe it should be raised and,
This was
discussed.
written in 1940s. So.
Right, discuss with the department heads on what's a number they're typically using these days. I know a lot of communities use $5,000 for that amount. So that can be discussed.
And I think I mentioned as one reference point only, we in East Point upped ours about 2 or 3 years ago to $15,000. And ours is by ordinance.
Typically, the manager has a spending limit, and that would apply across the board. So if there's a $15,000 spending limit,
Yeah.
the ordinance would apply to any and all things like that.
Right. And that makes sense, because you could spend, you know, a bunch of time and money just putting together a bid package for something
You're gonna spend
that's worth
$15,000.
$15,000, you know? So an amount like that would probably be beneficial for certain services. That's really all I saw on my end. I don't know if Trevor, can call your eye?
The first couple that you saw was nothing different.
If there's any questions that anyone has?
That's super helpful. And that's stuff that we had noted before too, just kind of like, well, that doesn't really make sense. What's that referring to? So thank you for clarifying that for us.
No problem.
There's nothing, it sounds like there's really nothing in the charter that hampers your day-to-day work, like
No.
nothing that's holding.
No,
you up.
nothing that I noticed. Just some cleanup, pretty much. I think the biggest thing would be what I saw was that contract and the dollar amount for department heads and the city manager. Making sure they're on board with the same dollar amount, everyone's aware of it. And, whatever dollar amount they set, it works, with today's standards.
That sign alone that just got destroyed,
Yeah.
was a $5,000 sign.
Right.
I mean, granted, it gets reimbursed, but that was still, that's what the sign that someone hit costs.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's, in my department anyways, $1,000 is a daily
yeah,
occurrence.
it can be, right.
That could be a fitting for a
Yeah.
water replacement or water break.
Yes.
Does anybody have any other questions, or?
Yeah. How's John the Busher doing?
I haven't seen him in quite the time.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see him around the office anymore.
Yeah, Steve Hangori was up at a meeting with me about 2 months ago. And it's funny, these guys that are presidents, remember they were Cubs. So he's out in the field. Ouch. Jealous.
Yeah,
Who's the next guy in line after Steve?
don't know. Don't know. He's the man right now.
Oh, I know. Good man. AEW is a wonderful firm, I want you to know that.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. It was kind of short, but doesn't seem like we have any more questions, and we appreciate your input. And if there's anything in the future where you think might come up that might be helpful for us to think about doing differently or anything like that, please let us know.
Yeah.
Like we're more than happy to talk to you at any time about anything.
And the same for the commission here. If something comes up in conversation where you think engineering is, input is needed, feel free, to send me an inquiry.
Okay.
I can get you another response.
Okay, great. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you're also welcome to exit, stage left.
Or you can always go home and watch it.
Yeah, I live in White Lake.
I live down the street, but I've never seen the dollars.
Yeah.
Should it be required?
It's not as bad as city council.
Orman and-
Should it be required that they stay?
Live up by,
If we have the space and stay. I love stuff recently.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
So thank you again.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Madam Chair, point of order, we missed public comment for items on the agenda, if they want to swing back around to that.
Oh, we can do that. Thank you for that reminder.
See you.
Public comment for items on the agenda. Okay. Thank you, Samantha.
Well, someone came, so I thought we should give them the opportunity.
Public comment for items on the agenda.
This public has nothing to add to this lovely agenda.
Rob, you have anything? No. Okay.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Next on the agenda, we have approved the minutes from the September 27th, 2022 meeting.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, next we have, the approving attorney invoice for September and match finance documents to the shared drive. The attorney invoice is 13526 for October 4th.
Motion to approve the attorney invoice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that in the morning?
Now, the other finance documents, I went through the shared drive and I just added from what we received from finance, what was paid. We have a different amount, but I think it's just because it wasn't on the report, so I think we're still good. Unless anybody has any questions on that, we can move forward. Next on the agenda is the acceptance of Commissioner B.T. Irwin's resignation from the post of Vice Chair duties. Just wanted to make clarification that this is not from the commission. It's just from the Vice Chair duties.
I'll move it. That was too fast. We can't talk about it until we get it on the floor.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Did you want to talk about it? It's pretty much self-explanatory in your, what we received, unless you want to add anything.
For the people at home who don't see the letter that the commission sees, I took a new job and started grad school since I got elected to the post. The vice chair has some additional responsibilities away from meetings that I feel I can no longer meet to the best of my ability. So in order to focus on the work of the commission that we do here and outside of our commission meetings, I feel like it's best that somebody else step up into the vice chair role who can give it a little more time away from our meetings. That's my resignation.
Thank you, we appreciate all that you've done, and,
We congratulate you on future endeavors as well, since you are now, continuous improvement.
Thank you. But I'll still be here.
Well, no, I mean, like, it's so good that you're,
This is my future endeavor. We're just going to get a different seat.
Madam Chair, I just want to say, I worked with Brad closely when we did the RFP for the attorneys, and I think we spent, 2 Saturdays together for 2 hours each, so I know that I couldn't have done it on my own, and so that was very helpful. I think it really proved beneficial for our selection process here, so.
we didn't really talk about it in depth in any of the meetings, but when Brad went and met with the city manager, there was a list of responsibilities for the different things that a vice chair does, that the chair does, and if anybody is going to be interested in filling the position for vice chair, I would just like to say that would be a great document to look at before they thought about being interested in it. Which takes us to the next, step on our agenda is the election of a new vice chair. And I actually am thinking, and I'm wondering what you guys are thinking about this, but I'm thinking that we should add this to our next agenda and not actually have somebody
take the position today.
yeah. So if we are all in agreement with that, I'll just put it on the next agenda and we'll continue on with our current business.
That's fine. I agree.
Good? Okay.
On that point, should people contact you if they're interested, so that way you list it on the agenda or you send a backup memo? Is that, I don't know if that's beneficial to us to know that she's interested, but he's not, or any combination thereof. And then we should also think of a process for how we're going to, if there's two people, how we're going to appoint.
They can campaign.
They can
Well,
get.
can we start with a motion to postpone E to the next meeting?
I'll move it.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. So on that point, just think about it, we're not here to embarrass one another, nor are we here to try to preclude people from being interested. We just need to come up with a fair way. We're on camera, votes have to be taken in public, we can't, pass a piece of paper around and then you open them, and so we can't do any of that. So I just want to alert people that, there's no secret ballot. And I don't say that because I don't think there was an intention to, we've become at least acquaintances, if not friends. We're not here to embarrass one another, but maybe we just, you should think of maybe sending an email out, or however, it should be smooth.
Well, I would like to remind everybody how I was voted in as chair. And I really didn't have anybody give me any notice that they were going to...
You were railroaded.
Yeah, and not that I mind it, because I'm here to serve,
Need a sucker.
but I'm just trying to say that I'm not 100% positive how we should do that. But segue into, John, thank you for being at our meeting. We already have a question for you.
I felt like I was walking into something.
So the question is, we're talking about the vice chair position is now available. And I had it on the agenda that we would talk about, they would have an election, but we just made a motion to put it on the next agenda. And we're trying to figure out, do we do it as a vote? Do people email me to say they're interested, if they are interested? And does it have to be coordinated? Can it just be somebody saying at the next meeting that they want somebody to be, and then we vote there, or what is your recommendation?
It can be any of the above. The main thing, though, it needs to be done in an open meeting, just like this. But it can be done, formally, where you would open the floor for nominations and then have a formal vote on the nominated party, or if there's a consensus of the group, or if it's one of those situations where everybody lines up and everybody takes a step back except one person, and that person gets to be it. So there's many different ways. I don't have a particular recommendation. We more a sense of the group. And as I just walked in, it sounded like if they want to put it off, if the commission's thinking of putting it off to the next meeting, that kind of suggests to me that people want to think about it a little bit and then come prepared to the next meeting to take it up, and that can involve the process as well.
What would likely happen is if someone's interested, they're going to ask someone to nominate them at the next meeting.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so if anybody's interested, you can ask somebody to nominate you, and then at the next meeting, we will we'll hear about that, and then we can vote.
You can have, depending how many nominees you have, if you just have one nominee, that makes it kind of easy. If you have multiple nominees, then you can have a discussion after the nominations are made, and then you can vote, and whoever commands a majority vote is the winner, or be careful what you wish for, or a loser, depending on one's perspective.
Okay. All right, is everybody in agreement to that?
That sounds
That's what we'll do? Okay, perfect. All right, unless anybody has anything, we'll move on to current business. And, great timing, John.
Thank you for having me, by the way. Hope everybody enjoyed the summer. Been monitoring meetings from afar.
So the document that we are going to be reviewing is the document that we passed out. It's the bullet pointed one from 10-6. It starts out, this is the one that we asked for the last meeting of the recommended updates, corresponding ordinance changes, the possible updates to be considered.
Yes, and these are my thoughts based on what I presented to you originally, and as I said, monitoring your meetings and responding to the attorney questions that were very promptly posted after your regular meetings. What I've done in very basic outline form is kind of assembled things into several categories, what I call the necessary updates, which, you know, I think are things that we kind of all agreed up front, and to the extent we have obsolete language in the charter, we need to fix those to conform it with existing law. We've got some awkward language, we want to fix that. We talked about, you know, gender neutrality, you know, changing the non-neutral, unneutral, whatever the word is, language to that. And then I've listed some things here. There's just been some statutory enactments over the years that either conflict with what we have in our charter or render it unnecessary. I mean, I know that you heard several meetings ago from or rather from the gentleman from the county equalization department who serves as the city's assessor, who said, well, you know, what you have in the charter is nice and all, but basically state law preempts and state law governs, so, you know, there's changes we need to make like that. So that was the first category. The second category was, I indicated as recommended updates, things that you don't necessarily have to do, but I'm recommending to you, just again, to keep the charter current, to add some, you know, some good stuff in it that, I have something in there like specifically authorizing intergovernmental cooperation, which is kind of a big thing these days, to get municipalities and government agencies working together, contracting together to provide, you know, more effective and cost-efficient services. And just again, some terminology changes aren't essential, but while we're at it, we should, I think, kind of clean up some of that stuff. And then my third category, possible updates to be considered, I guess maybe you'd put that in what you've been referring to as the big rock category. I mean, these are just things to consider. Do you want to have at-large elections throughout the city, or do you want to have a ward system? Do you want to continue with a 5-member city council, or do you want to have a 7-member or a 9-member or whatever odd number you choose? Things I'm not necessarily recommending to you, but just these are things while we're here, while we're elected, to tackle the charter and hopefully create a better one that will be good for years to come. These are all things that I think you want to consider. And then the last category I have on my very last page, and I apologize, I thought I numbered the pages, and obviously I didn't. That's what happens when I send something out before giving it to my legal assistant for final proofing to correct everything I've messed up. I just indicate corresponding ordinance changes needed. I've actually gone through your code a little bit. I'm your attorney. I'm not the city attorney, so I'm not going to pretend for a minute I'm anywhere near as familiar with the municipal code as he is, or probably August is, or anybody else who works in this building normally. Some of these ordinances I list are things that I actually already find in the code, like a street sidewalks ordinance, a subdivision control ordinance, an ethics ordinance. What I've not done, though, is I haven't gone to see how the ordinances compare and contrast with what the charter says and whether there's any conflicts there. But there's an example of where the city and the city council have already adopted ordinances for some of these topics, which in my opinion is usually a better and more flexible way, and a way to keep your your procedures and practices more up to date, current with, with what the thinking here in City Hall is, the best way to do things. And we've already done that to some extent. And to the extent we have ordinances that cover these things, it kind of makes what's in the charter redundant and unnecessary. And so in those cases where we already have ordinances, maybe we can just delete and omit those corresponding provisions of the charter, and at the same time, suggest this as an opportunity for the city council to look at these ordinances and, update them to the extent that they need to be. That's usually a healthy practice. Sometimes ordinances get adopted, nobody talks, nobody does anything with them for 20 years, and meanwhile, technology changes, all kinds of things change, and you realize, the way we have that ordinance set up and the procedure in the ordinance is really kind of holding us back and institutionalizing an inefficient practice. But at least with ordinances, it's a lot easier to amend and update those than it is to go through a charter amendment. So that's why generally on things like special assessments, ethics, other kinds of regulations, I think the way to go on those is through ordinance. Authorize in your charter, authorize the city council to adopt those ordinances, but don't try to turn your charter into an ordinance.
So anything acidic, like lemon or grape? My phone is broken. It only makes noise when you don't want it.
So anyway, that's what I tried to present to you, just a rough outline, and then depending on your direction, we can actually start revising and modifying and creating the new text as you're approaching your phase. And I know we're going to talk about Mr. Irwin's document a little later, but as we move from one phase to the next and start getting ready for what I'll call the rollout stage, where we want to actually have a document, at least a workable draft document to present to people rather than just, sorry. My phone's acting up too. You're not alone. So anyway, that would be the next step. This is the outline, tell you what my thinking is based on everything I put together, and then implementation would be the next stage, reducing this to chartered text.
Does anybody have any questions?
We talked briefly about the idea when we decided to update the charter to do highlight and strikeouts for the text and stuff like that. Have you ever does that seem like a good idea in my opinion? The only reason why I'm asking is because it's going to be one big gigantic document, of course, but we were talking about doing citations or doing just removable and then highlighting. Well,
that's what I thought of doing, Talia, but I think it would just be a lot easier to follow. If I just give you, brand new text, you're gonna have to sit there with that and compare it to the other. My thought would be that we would do a track changes version with perhaps some margin notes, kind of explaining, what we did, why, to the extent we omitted something, what did we omit, and then as we go, however we want to tackle it, whether we're going to go chapter by chapter or whatever, ultimately, then that's easily convertible into clean text. But that would be my thought, unless the commission has a preference to do it the other way. I know personally, I always like to see the track changes and the margin notes rather than having to compare two clean documents.
No, because like Brad brought it up in our meeting that we wanted to keep, at least to show that we made a change, but we weren't removing the full change to show like there's still previous, there was
Exactly.
administrative before
And
that.
that's what I'm talking about with the track changes. You see what's being deleted, what's being added, and maybe what, in appropriate cases, certain notes or annotations explaining what we did and why.
Yeah, there are, I think, two levels of explanation that are going to be necessary. There's this document that you brought us tonight, Mr. Starr, it's excellent, and I'm glad you brought it because it already addresses one of the questions that I was going to ask. So there is there's a level of explanation for us as we make decisions, as we deliberate and make decisions. So this document, the first page is going to be fairly straightforward. We need to take this out because this language is antiquated. Everybody understands that. As you get back into these pages, the explanations of what is at issue here, what decision are we actually making, why we need to make these changes gets a little more complicated. So on that level, I, as a commissioner who is trying to make up my own mind, what I think about changing this section so that I can deliberate with the rest of the commission, there's that level of explanation. The second level of explanation is, this is a legal document, but it's a political process that will get it passed. And so we have to think about the public that's either going to approve or reject the changes that we make. So those explanations need to be visible to the public. This is the section we're considering. This is why we're recommending the change. Based on the counsel we received from our attorney and our deliberations, this is the change that we're recommending we make so that the public can see original language, change that we're recommending, and why we're recommending that change to the charter, so that it's all above board, right? The public can say, hey, I understand what they're doing. So we're going to take something out. They can see it. We're taking this out. Here's why. So for our purposes now, it's that first level of explanation. This is good. We have that gigantic document, the charter itself with all the notes written on the side. It might be a good thing to have something like this, and I know we'll discuss this more a little bit later, starting to kind of line out, this is why we need to do this. This is why we might do this, because we have to then turn around and explain it to everyone else after we deliberated ourselves.
Those are all good thoughts and probably speaking the obvious that everybody already understands, but key to credibility and passage. I don't think we're all convening here just to prepare something that the voters are going to shoot down. I mean, hopefully we're going to present things that people will be enthusiastic about, as enthusiastic as people get about a city charter, but something that they can embrace. And trust and transparency will be huge. So we're going to have to present the information in a clear and concise manner. I think those are all good thoughts. They're maybe not even decided tonight or prepared tonight, but along the way, I would expect there probably would be some additional and some supplemental materials, whether it's brochures, short explanations, just kind of hitting on some of the key points, not necessarily every change, but basically the major things that we're doing so that the public will understand it. And that would be good stuff too for the media to pick up on and that kind of thing, for press releases, all that. Because we really can't, I mean, let's face it, the political process for many people is simply driving down the street and which signs catch their fancy or their attention as to what they're going to vote on, and asking people to, or expecting people to sit down with a multi-page city charter and go through it line by line trying to understand. It's not going to happen. Some people will do that. Most won't. They're going to be looking to be provided with that information, and if they're not provided with the information, they're not going to trust it. So that's going to be an important task ahead of us.
Good point. Yeah, we had talked about that a couple meetings ago when we came across one of the items, if we delete it, and they're going to wonder, why did we delete it? So we'll have to think about that. How are we going to, what is it we're going to do to get to them so that they can see understand what we did is trustworthy, credible. Good point. Okay. Well, thank you for this. Does anybody have any other questions?
And by the way, I welcome anyone, I mean, whether it's a meeting or people just want to email me, or I guess email Laura and she can forward to me, but if anyone feels I've left out anything or missed anything, I mean, there are a few things, or a few word changes I know that came up in some of the meetings, and I have those noted. I didn't necessarily list them all in this outline, so I didn't want to bore you to death every time I'm changing a comma or a semicolon or whatever, but if anybody sees some things they want to make sure that I'm aware of or believe that I've overlooked, by all means, let me know, because I have not tried to filter or edit anything out. I don't rule out that I missed something.
Thank you for making sense of all of our notes and different people's notes, and that's great. It's very helpful.
You're welcome.
The one of the questions that I intended to ask tonight, and you apparently read the document that I put together, and so I imagine the process unfolding in 4 phases, starting with the easiest and working our way to the hardest, so that we build momentum. My reasoning is that if there are things in the charter that are easy to change, that 90% of the people would agree, yeah, that's common sense, change that, then we can start making revisions immediately.
Yes.
And start building momentum. And so if you saw the document, there was easy stuff, low-hanging fruit, and then I think, I'm not looking at it right now, but working our way up to the issues that would, or the changes that might require greater explanation, or might raise more scrutiny from the public, or might be more controversial, that we might have to deliberate as a commission quite a bit before we arrive at language. So we are building up to that point, and we're building some momentum. So one of the questions I was going to ask you tonight is, do you think that you've already laid everything out here kind of in that order? Is it possible for you to recommend, as our attorney, these are the things, like, I think we could probably go ahead and revise immediately, and then we can propose that, deliberate, and make a decision, so that before we get to the end of the year, we actually can point to something that has been done, and then where we might need to spend more time deliberating and engaging the public or other bodies. The ordinance piece is one that we've discussed here a lot. If we take things out of the charter that are better as ordinances, that creates quite a bit of work for city council.
Right.
So we wouldn't want to just snap our fingers and do that without knowing how that's actually going to happen in the real world. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you were to lay this out in order from easiest to hardest, what order would you lay it out and make your case for why that should be the order? And that's not a question you can answer tonight, but it's something I'd like for you to think about.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that I would say most of what I've indicated, maybe all of what I've indicated in the necessary updates would fit into that category. I know what needs to be done. I don't think we'll have too much debate, and if we do, we can discuss that. What I'm thinking is necessary. I'm assuming there's kind of consensus on those things. Those can be made fairly quickly. Some are real simple changes, delete a word, change a word. Others will require more text writing, but again, I've got a grasp of all that. And then when we get into the recommended updates, and certainly the big rock items, those are where we're probably going to have to tackle those part by part, piece by piece, talk those through. We may or may not have consensus on those, and we'll have to work through that. So that would probably be a good starting point, would be to get these necessary updates, get them there. You'll have a product to show, okay, here's what we've done. These are the things that are necessary, and now we're gonna keep working through that. So yeah, we can talk about it more in the future, but I can get started on that. You can see from my outline, I already know what I need to do. It's just a matter of doing it.
And that's a responsibility that all of us share. I'd say between now and our next meeting. You know, we have an attorney, but he's not the only one who should be going back and looking at each of these sections of the charter and coming back ready to talk about where we can go now and where we're going to need some deliberation. We all ought to come with our own opinions, having read through these sections and thought about what case we would make for why this now and why that for a later time with more deliberation.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, thoughts? So,
You still need to find out about ordinances, right?
Yeah, go on to the city website, you can see.
what was your question, Talia?
I just,
Unicode.
because he made a good point in saying that we checking ordinances versus the charter. So I'm just kind of curious about what current ordinance we do have that we might not even have to make a change. So it might already be there, it might already be adopted, we just have to sign it.
Well, I can tell you right up because I've got my own little notes here. I've got on that last page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 potential ordinance changes, and I can tell you with regard to the first one, which is regarding traffic and parking, city already has an ordinance that adopts the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code by reference. That's what most, maybe every other municipality in the state does. And so
that's why no one can find the U-turn ticket in the local ordinance. 'Cause It's all adopted by code. And
It
we
used to
don't
be
realize that,
a hodgepodge. You had some communities use a uniform traffic code. You had others making up their own codes. Now everybody does the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code, and so that would be one where I feel pretty confident without having read every word of it. We're probably good. The city's probably good on that one, and we just need to take some of the stuff out of the charter because it's not necessary. We're following state law. I'm not sure about the standards for manufactured housing and mobile homes. That's something I would expect to see in the zoning ordinance, but it didn't jump out at me. It may be there, but like I said, I'm not the city attorney. I'm not the planning and zoning coordinator. It may be there. I just didn't easily find it. Purchasing and procurement procedures. I did see a purchasing ordinance. I just didn't compare it to see how it compares or contrasts with what the charter states the purchasing procedure should be, whether it mirrors it, whatever. But even if you have an ordinance, purchasing ordinance is a great example of one that I think it's advisable to have done by ordinance so that you have the flexibility to take advantages of, and there's always changes in technology, there's group and consortium buying, just kind of the spending limits. We all know, well, we know what's happened to prices just in the past year with inflation, right? And when you're trying to apply price thresholds that are from 1960 or whatever, it's just you're not keeping up with the times. Ethics ordinance, you have one, but again, there's some provisions in the charter. I don't know how well they mix and match. Special assessment procedure ordinance, I did not find. You have detailed provisions in the charter, but I did not find a separate ordinance. Street and sidewalk ordinance, you have one. In planning and land division ordinance, I did see that ordinance too, and that's one of those areas that's largely governed by state law, the Michigan Land Division Act now anyway, but usually communities like to add some of their own little procedures to deal with some of the smaller lot splits and that kind of thing. But so really the only one I've identified that I'm pretty sure you don't have is the special assessment ordinance, and I'm not sure about the manufactured housing standards. The others you have, it's just a matter of do they need updating.
And just for clarity, for everybody at home too, we're talking about sections that we identified over the last several months that we in this room said that would be better as an ordinance
Yes, exactly.
rather than being in the charter. And the model city charter also doesn't include anything of that nature. So we're talking about taking things out of the charter so that they would be ordinances going forward, and you've done the research to figure out where does the city already have ordinances in place, so it's not like we're starting from scratch. Hey, city council, we're going to ask the people to take this out of the charter, you're going to have to write a bunch of new ordinances. They're actually we already have ordinances that cover most everything on here.
That's exactly right. That's exactly and solely the reason we're doing this. We're not trying to step in the city council's shoes
Right.
here and write legislation.
Right.
That's the elected city council's
Right.
job. All we're doing is trying to eliminate both redundancies as well as you said, believing that letting the city council do something by ordinance will ultimately be better for the city than having it ingrained in the charter,
Right.
which is much harder to keep current and updated unless we want to go through this kind of process every couple of years, which is probably not advisable or necessary.
Or charter amendments which get voted on by the people, which take, takes a process.
Yeah.
It is. A lot more complicated than doing it by ordinance.
Exactly.
And a lot harder to undo than an ordinance.
Thank you. That gave a lot. I appreciate it.
So do we need a motion for him to go ahead and start that immediately for the revising of what we think it is now?
I mean, if you don't mind making necessary changes that you've already.
I assume that, I'll go with just a head nod or a harumph or whatever, because that is part of the process that we've talked about, and I've already started on that path, so I will continue to work on that and start putting the text together and create it, and then we can figure out together as I have, as I complete parts and portions, what's the best way to make it available to all of you so that you can see it and we don't have to just
So is it a
plop big
motion
documents on you every couple of
to
weeks?
start the necessary updates, text process?
Yes.
That's sort of that's the motion? Did you officially make that motion?
Nobody-
I didn't get the, I thought yours was more like, I'm in agreement.
Okay, that's why I was trying to figure
That's how
out. I was writing it down.
I'll take it formal direction, or if we need to make a formal motion
I'll
for
motion
purposes
it.
of having a good record, that's fine.
Before there's a motion, how do we want him to do this so that we can see, just like start with a fresh charter, shared charter? We've been working off of this one document for months now. But if we want to see, here's the original, here's the change, and we want to see them side by side without all the notes and everything. that
Separate
we've
from the
written.
research
Should we
document?
create a new document? I want to ask this, it was going to come later tonight, how can we, once the commission, this is maybe a point for later discussion, are we going to approve these changes as they go? Which is what I think we should do, so that we can share them as we go with the public. So in other words, instead of dumping one big change at the end of the process, the public sees progress and sees how. So my point is, we have to have a tool that we, the commission, see, here's the change that's been made. We can see it, right, side by side. But then we're also going to need something that the public can see as we go. And this takes us back to the beginning when we first started doing the process. So there were two questions there. One, do we have a new working document where we're starting to see the revisions, and then we as a commission can look at those revisions from week to week, deliberate and approve if we like them? Two, is there a document that once those changes are approved, or even if we're considering them, the public can see in real time?
I think that's what we were talking about before, is just, yeah, starting a fresh Word document similar to his first review,
Yeah.
where it would be,
Yeah,
he would make notes and redline it.
they can be on parallel tracks, so we can have a clean version and a track changes version at the same time.
To your point, Brad, yeah, then we gotta figure out how to convey that to the public, so they're not having to scroll through 40-plus pages. Perhaps we can summarize the changes that we approve and put it out in a more attractive-looking document for them to review, you know, old charter, new charter.
Executive summary type stuff.
Yeah. I think
that's
that
a
would be
good-
easier.
Yeah, that's a good idea because they don't see it all in one chunk. There's bits and pieces as we go. I think that would be easier for them to feel like there's credibility to that. As long as we-
Put them side by side.
As long as we figure out what tool we're using to do that.
Yeah, and the third thing that just occurred to me, and that's why I said I want to hold off on the motion, because we have to know how we're actually going to execute on the motion, if we go through with it, is, I'm going to say this third thing, so I don't confuse it. I'll stick with those two questions. So we have to know, so what I heard Commissioner Hanser Maynard say is, she heard that we would we'd start a fresh new working document as we make the revisions. That's one. And then we just have to figure out how to share that with the public, which we don't have to do tonight. So then the motion would be what?
Let's hear what Talia has to say
For
first.
him to make his list of necessary changes, all of the things that are considered like legal things that are non-negotiables. things-
Make the changes, not the list, make the changes.
Specific text, right?
Yeah,
Right,
I would say go
start.
ahead and, I would say they go ahead and make those specific changes. And then while we're going ahead and working through our recommended updates, that's where we're going ahead and go through the approval process. And then like our possible updates to be considered. Just because I know you were talking about us making sure we're moving along, and I don't want to hold them up on things that we know, like, well, he knows that can't be there. And it's not really up to, I love the fact that the citizens do tune in when they can. And they care about the document that we have, but that's not really mine, theirs decision because it's superseded by law. So if you want to know the change that we made and why we made the change and when that change happened, more than open to having that. That would be one of those things that we put in the margins, and that's one of the things that will be noted for them to know. But things like how we were talking about term limits, just making sure we're clarifying roles and description of jobs, I think those are the moments where we really want to get more people's input about what they think we're doing. I think that was one of the reasons why he said, like you said, a brochure as an option.
Got brochures,
Like,
that is some
like
or whatever
brochure
label you
example
want.
options, so like,
Yeah.
because this would be a good, like, just what we have here would be a good thing to have in a brochure. It's like, hey, we removed this because law. We're considering making these changes. And if they want to say, how do they feel, those are one of those moments where we're getting them actively to come to any meeting they want to talk to us about, if they do have any questions, because people talk to people on Facebook too. So I think making sure that we're staying with your timeline that you gave us, but also making sure that we're hitting all the big rocks that we all talked about and when we first started. I just think that'll help get us through that circulating change, and it'll let them see the changes that are happening and they are being made too. So it's still active work, and we're still workshopping too, but they're still gonna see this.
It'll help get you in a rhythm.
Yeah.
And a way to accept these 24, like these 24 changes, vote on them, see how it.
And to be clear for everybody, what we're saying here, the attorney does not change the charter. He comes back with making the necessary updates that he's indicated. We look at them, deliberate if need be, and then we, the commission, who are elected by the people, vote to approve or make alterations. So the motion that we're putting out there, I think as I understand it, is Mr. Starring go begin making the revisions, these necessary updates that are going to change no matter what, because of state law, because everybody's going to agree to them, and then bring those back to the commission so we can deliberate and pass if we see that it's time to approve.
That's what I fit in that little box right there for motion. We have a motion by Ms. Parker. We have a second.
I would second.
All in favor? Are you in favor too?
Oh, can I favor my own motion?
Absolutely, you won't be.
Even bad.
Okay.
I have a question before we move on.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna put this on the internet or city's website or whatever. So I've been doing a lot of public outreach the last 4 to 6 weeks at work. I still encounter about 10% of the people who don't have internet. So we've got a plan for that. We can't just tell people, well, go to your neighbor's house or your daughter's house and she'll bring up the website, you can read it. I think we have to have a hard copy of each section in the clerk's office that's readily available, and at the library that's readily available, because the last thing we want to hear is like, you know, and most of the people, yes, they are older, but that doesn't matter. I've encountered older people who are in their 80s, like they've got internet, they've got Facebook or whatever, but we've got a plan for that, and I just want to make sure that we do have a hard copy, at least at 2 different locations that people have access to. Quickly have access.
That makes sense. Actually, I can't remember which changes it is, but one of the changes in here was that there was a section in your charter that talks about having like 40 copies of the city code available at the clerk's office. Like, I don't know if you need 40, but you probably need a few for that contingency.
Exactly. That he can hand someone the book and say, you can read it here, or it's at the library, and you know, whatever the case may be.
I was just going to ask how many copies we think we need to make.
I would say like 2 here and 2 there, you know? And then that, you know, it's no different than a book. If someone has the book, you know, it's like, well, then you just wait till I'm assuming it's going to be a reference book, you can't take it out at the library. Here, we would say, you know, please read it here, or if you want, we can make you a copy. And we should be pretty, you know, offer that really quickly.
Well, somebody had pointed out in the last month or so that we should send one to everybody in the city, not specifically the whole entire one, but whatever we do,
Oh, boy.
mail it to everybody. I don't know if that's something that we want to do, but
Local
somebody
media will
brought it
cover
up.
it as well. They'll cover it, they'll interview you, they'll ask you to talk about the changes when it gets there. It's a newsworthy item, they'll cover it.
If we were going to do that, I would say we do that at the end, not section by section.
Sure.
If we were going to do that.
Absolutely.
Gotta be mindful of your budget, and that would be a big budget.
Oh, my
budget
God.
eater.
My understanding, I'm glad I'm looking at you, my understanding from the get-go, when we read the Michigan Municipal League Charter Handbook that most of us read, is that this commission cannot campaign.
That's correct.
There has to be an independent campaign committee that campaigns for passage of the charter.
You can't buy any yes on long signs or anything like that.
So this commission or any public agency, you can provide balanced, factual information. You can educate, to put a word on it. What you can't do is advocate for or against. You can personally, but not as a commission. We can't spend city resources, public resources to promote a vote one way or another. We can promote a vote, please vote. We do that all the time, right? But not to say yes or no. So that would be like a political action committee that would be separate from this board. That's correct. All we can do here is put out educational information, like what we were talking about before, brochures and that type of thing, explaining in a balanced, factual way what we're doing.
Political action committee is a much more complicated thing than a issue committee. So,
well,
it's a whole lot less paperwork, but yes, it has to be an independent campaign committee.
And I just bring that up because as we get closer to the time when these things, we need to understand what our role is and what we can and will do, and what will be the responsibility of a different group that will have to form a campaign for the charter revision.
Okay, anybody else? No?
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we looked at the document, asked you some questions, deciding we already know what our next steps are. So if we, do you have anything else? Any questions for us?
No, just I'm here and I'll be here as often as you want me to be here. I think we're starting to get to that time now where my being readily available to you will probably be more helpful than just sending or having me respond between your meetings to attorney questions, which we can do both. No, I think I've got a handle on it, and since I'm here, I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't have any questions for you, though.
Okay.
Remembered one last question I wanted to ask you tonight. So, how long should we plan on the state of Michigan having this before approval and getting it back to us to get it ready for the ballot?
Every time I throw out a number, they fool me. If I tell someone give it 60 days, they get it back 2 or 3 weeks later. If I tell them 30 days, it takes 2 months. The charter itself, getting a charter, I would tend to side more conservatively on it with a longer time period. It's, this isn't a simple charter amendment where we have a 1-paragraph amendment and, the governor can turn that around and the attorney general can turn that around in 30 days. With a charter that's going to be multiple pages, minimum of 60, but I would probably allow for 90 days just so we don't cut ourselves short on any kind of deadlines or plan for it to be in a November election, and here we are the night before August deadline to get it on the ballot.
Which would be a July deadline.
And we still haven't heard from the governor's office. So I would put that into the timetable, at least 90 days.
I have a question. John, does it run parallel with, you send one to the governor and you send one to the attorney general, and the governor will do some preliminary review, but wait until the attorney general?
We send to both. Usually my observation and experience over the years has been that the attorney general does 90% of the heavy lifting. And in particular, a gentleman named George Elwood.
George does all that.
The Attorney General's office does the heavy lifting.
Still.
And then he makes a report to the governor's office. The governor's legal counsel does look it over, but my experience has been they pretty much just take what they get from George Elwood at the Attorney General's office and they run with it. They say what he said. And the governor, you get a nice little letter from the governor, and that's it. So when we send these things out, I always, simultaneously, I don't just send it to the governor's office and let her turn around. Send it directly to George Elworth to keep it as
It's the
efficient
office
as
of the
possible.
Great Seal, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah,
that what it's called?
something
Yeah.
like that.
In the governor's office.
If, let's say there's some glitches, the attorney general says these changes have to be made, those sections come back to us, so we may have to take action as well, more action or corrections or whatever the case may be. So, 90 days, I've only had experiences with charter amendments, not with this. 90 days to meet with, when we give a multi-page document, it would be really like, I don't see it being less than that, especially if they're changing.
I think that's right, but I'll tell you, just so we're now way off on this thing. I will, before our next meeting, get in touch with Mr. Elworth at the Attorney General's office and ask him directly, just, what would he suggest, what would he recommend? And if he tells me something different, then that's when I'm gonna come back. But since he's the one gonna be doing most of the heavy lifting, he's probably the appropriate person to answer that question for us.
That's a good point.
If we are, sorry, the next point. I'm looking at our schedule here, and our first meeting in July is July 11th, which will be too late to get it on the ballot. right?
I don't think so.
No,
I
it's
think it's
right
like a
around
week
there.
after the
It's like
primary.
July 20th.
Isn't it in
So
August?
it's I thought it was the week after the
August, isn't
primary.
it in August? I
No, I
mean,
think
at the
that
Olympics.
November's the end of July. I don't
Is
have
it the end of
book,
July?
Okay, so, but it would require the council meeting before that
That's right.
to say, this is, we put this to the ballot to the voters. The
So-
resolution putting it on the ballot.
Got it. So
Then,
just reverse engineering here, there will be no city council meeting on July 4, which would normally be so I don't want to get into details about dates, only to say that in order to get this thing on the ballot for November 2023, we really need to have it wrapped up in June. And that means it needs to go to the state May, April, August,
I suggested April.
early April, possibly
Yes.
March.
yeah.
That's what we got.
It's possible, it's ambitious, but it's possible.
Well, I don't, if it ends up on the November ballot and the people reject it, then that gives us 1 year to go back and make it right by the people for them to approve. But we already know how hard it is to go through it would have to, if we made any changes to it after it got rejected, it would have to go back to the Attorney General's office, right? So we'd have to go through that process.
It
again.
would, although I've got to tell you something, there was a case decided within the last year rising out of Detroit, and they're going through their charter process where we now have an appellate court decision that just says the statute requires submittal to the governor for the governor's approval, but that court said that the governor does not have veto power. If she disapproves something and the community still wants to take it to the voters, the community can still take it to the voters.
Good.
Not a recommended practice, and of course it would depend on what the government, why the governor's disapproving. If she's disapproving it, saying, because you got something unconstitutional in there, I'm not sure you want to take that to the voters.
No, but most likely the AG would catch that
Well, that's right.
before the governor.
Well, exactly.
I look at
So-
the governor's approval more as a political
Yeah,
issue.
that's going to be a one paragraph long letter. The AG's letter, the letter from George Elworth is the one that's going to lay out to the extent he has concerns, it's going to explain those to them. But nevertheless, yeah, you don't want to set yourself up for too tight of with no margin for error on that. It'd be much better to have things ready and have the governor's approval come in, and then you have more time to get this out there, get the word out, that type of thing, than, like I said, standing at August counter the night before, waiting for the mailman to arrive with the with the governor's letter. So, and that of course all if you want to do it in the November election. I know you've had some discussion about that. There's always differences of opinion which election you want to shoot for, but certainly if you want to reach the greatest number of voters, it would seem next November it's going to be a presidential, or no, well, not next November, but it's the November election is typically going to draw people out more than just one of these special elections or a primary or whatever.
If we moved it, I don't see any way that we could get it on the ballot sooner than November 2023. But if we were to push it back later, we would have no margin of error.
Right.
It would have to pass, because if it didn't, we wouldn't have enough time to turn
Well, you'd
around
run out of time.
and
That's
make
right.
changes. So,
My belief is, this is a go or no-go, because you said, well, we'll have to find out from the public what the changes should be. Well, he's gonna think it's the voting age, she thinks it's the residency, he thinks it's like, which one of those three do we listen to and start making changes to? And pretty soon, they're happy, but he's still unhappy. So I just think we gotta give it our best shot, and we go. And if it's turned down, you know what? Guess what? It went down. And that's really how I'm gonna face it, not like, oh man, we should have worked harder, if we would have only known. Well, hopefully we'll hear that, you know, in our outreach. But I gotta tell you this, though I'm signed up for it, and I'm gonna attend, I think a second attempt is not a good strategy. I think we gotta have a really good document, what the 9 of us feel, and we listen to public comments, and we go with it, and we support it. But like I said, to go again, I don't know who I would listen to find out what was wrong with the original one.
That's a good point.
I think you'll need to wait and see what
Right.
happens. I mean, if there
Right.
does seem to be one central theme that turned people off, well, then you'll know.
Especially if we need
But
to
if
hear it up
it's
front.
if it's a hodgepodge, people just didn't know, some people just don't like change. you
Right,
know, just-
absolutely.
This has been our charter for, decades, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that kind of attitude.
And that's-
What's broke doesn't affect
It is
it,
broke.
so.
Right,
Yeah.
But it's costing the city a lot of money because it's not updated.
well, that's right.
I'm confident
So-
that we'll get it right.
But I think we will get it right.
Yeah.
It's.
But we want to get it right because that's why they sent us here.
Right.
That filing deadline, just for information, this year, it is in August because the election, November election is a week later. It's November 8th, so it's always at, like that last Tuesday in July.
August this year.
Yeah, this year it's August 2nd, which is, I've never seen it in August. It's always in the last week of July.
Is it 13 weeks before the election?
Oh, is it
45?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm just looking at the dates that were specific.
Understood.
There is a number though, it's a count backwards
It's
number.
a count backwards.
Every time I figure it out, they change the law again.
Right.
I just asked the city clerk.
Yeah, I gotta
That's
look
the
at the
best
proposal
way.
too and see if it changes it again, but I think that one stays the same.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Concerns? We can go into 8.
August 8th is 13 weeks before the election day.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the exact number, it's 13 weeks, but it's
That's
a
13
count back,
weeks,
yeah. So this year it's August 2nd for November 8th election. So next year it'll be 7, so it goes back a day, so it'll be like August 1st, or whatever the Tuesday is.
November 8th is as late as it can be.
As late as it can possibly be, yeah. First Tuesday
First Tuesday
after the first month.
That's what
It can never be November 1st. Fun facts, of federal election.
I'm impressed that you have to know all that. All
I
right.
worry about the current years. I'm not, have 2023's dates quite memorized yet.
Okay, so on the agenda, we have number 8, which is commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioner comments?
Not comments, but questions. We talked about, and I don't have it in front of me, we talked about meeting dates between now and the end of the year. Does it look like we have 5 meeting dates? We're going ahead with all 5? Because I saw.
Last meeting, we talked about election day possibly, but I saw,
Yeah, there's not an option for election day currently. There's a planning commission meeting in the council chambers.
Okay.
There's a precinct in here, the library's closed.
Okay,
And-
so how about the community center? Because you know what, there's only 5 meetings left between now and the end of the year. 4.
And it ain't gonna be
If you
anyone
take
from the
out
city
election
there.
Yeah, and I'm not taking out election day.
We're not gonna be there, okay? Whatever.
We understand, but we can function without
Okay.
you guys. I believe we
Not
can
what I've been
function, but we will make the decision. I think we ought to find a place to meet here in town and the community center. Is there a precinct at the community center? There used to be.
No, there's not one in Hunter.
Anymore.
Okay, not anymore, that's where I used to go. I think we ought to look there, because, going a month without a meeting, I think really hinders the timeline that we've been talking about. It's only 5 meetings left between now and the end of the year. I don't think we can miss a meeting.
Why don't we do it on that Monday, before the election?
He won't be able to come, he is so busy.
This room will be checked, will be used,
Yeah.
it'll be organized, everything will be set up.
It's the location that we need.
Will council chambers be open that Monday though?
Is there county board in there?
No, there's no counting board in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be open.
I think we should do it.
Well, I won't be here, but you guys can.
I don't know your
Then maybe we should find a date that, I hate to have you two miss. just
I'm
like
setting a
every-
reminder to ask
every-
Gina about Hunter tomorrow morning.
I'll be in Haiti.
See, then we need to, I'm glad you guys mentioned it, because you know what? I don't think we should go with 6 people. And we should find a date and a location that's I just, again, I'm stressing it, if no one else is concerned, then I have to go with
No,
what.
I mean, I think the community center is a good idea. If we, August, do we, I mean, I know someone there, or is that something that you would reach out?
I'm setting a reminder to ask Gina in the morning
Thank you.
to see what the schedule is. There might be standing things in there in
Right.
the room that would work, so I just gotta find out. I don't keep their schedule.
So we need
You don't
to
interrupt
know,
aerobics or anything like that.
Right,
we need
exactly.
to know your schedule, and your schedule, because I think we should try to achieve a total board being
So
present.
you want to
The
try
plan
and have the
is
meeting on
to
the
keep our
1st?
Tuesday.
No,
but-
we're still talking about the 8th.
Yeah, I can do.
Okay.
I'm out of town for Monday.
And I guess we don't need a decision now, but I just hate, we're coming up on it, otherwise we'll be here in the second meeting in October, and then we're off till the last meeting of November.
So you talking about Monday, November 7th?
I thought the 8th was a possibility if we were at the community center.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
the
the
7th, I
Plan A
won't
is
be here.
keeping.
Yeah, plan A is keep the date,
Keep our date.
just change the location.
That's fine, because November 7th I can't be
And
here.
then, yeah, Plan B, it sounds like the 7th is out, so maybe Wednesday the 9th or a different day.
Is the 8th good for,
I won't be. I'll be gone from the 2nd to the 8th.
got it,
I can do it.
and chairperson, is it good for
You
you?
know what? If you guys want me to, if like somebody had a phone propped up or something like that, I don't mind. I'm gonna say I'll tune in.
You wouldn't be able to
that way.
vote.
Yeah, you wouldn't be
But
able
you
to
could
vote, you just
deliberate.
be able to
That's
listen and
perfectly
talk.
fine.
You could chime in.
And those are hard to try to,
I just don't want you guys. I want to be as present as I can as physically possible.
understood.
And I'll say I'm 100% confident that you guys make a decision.
If you're on vacation, be on vacation.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why there's 9 of us.
That's why there's not,
that's
yeah,
right.
it's okay.
All right.
All right, so the 8th originally, that was the date, so that, I can do the 8th.
Then we just need the location.
He's working on that.
Oh.
He'll take care of
Just
that.
We'll know tomorrow.
Yep. Just put it in.
We can just go to August.
The 8th and the 9th.
You can do it at my house.
No?
The 9th is bad for me, I have a work commitment, second Tuesday. And I surely don't expect it
Okay.
for one person not to have a meeting, but if it could be avoided, the 8th is perfect for me.
Okay, well, let's just see if we can find somewhere.
We'll find, we gotta find, I think we gotta find some place. Samantha's also offered her home. As long as we
Open to the
bill
public.
itself, and it's handicap accessible, we can manage it.
Pretty good.
Are we also, is the high school an option too? I know they live stream their meetings, so they have the capability.
Library would be
Yeah,
fun.
I can ask to see if because we do the school board meetings are in the middle school media center, which
Okay.
is, yeah, very easy to set up.
Yep.
Yes, those are all.
I put a call into the high school today to ask them if they have the possibility of loaning us like a student, a government student that would maybe want to do our social media for us. And of course, it's just today, so what are your thoughts on that?
I'm always open to going and doing outsourcing to this community.
I don't know if anyone else has read anything written by a high school student lately.
There's the recorder.
That was pretty.
I'm not positive that that's an amazing idea.
Well, if we gave them what we wanted them to say, they can just do social
Sure,
media.
okay.
So I mean, I'm not even really sure what the,
Yeah, you could use them not necessarily to be your text writers, but just to help you with getting out there on the platform, maybe with graphics,
Yeah.
other such things, but leave the messaging to the people here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that could be a good project for someone.
I mean, they could put our meeting locations, they could put information like that out.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll see if they get back with me, how that works out.
Once we start doing section by section, the charter where it's available in terms of the library here, I agree. I think it'd be nice if someone volunteered to do it.
Yeah.
Did you reach out to the superintendent?
I called the office and left a message with the secretary.
Okay.
If,
It will probably be routed to him then.
okay, the superintendent.
Or Kim Olson, who's the principal.
I'll follow up with them, and if I don't hear back, then,
Yeah, I mean, I know them, I see them several times a month, so if you don't get a response, let me know, I can follow up too.
okay.
See you Monday.
Do you have anything else?
I have one question that relates to the public relations aspect of this. So I thought through where we need to go and where we need to get and when we need to get there. That's the document you referred to, and that's in your packet. One of the question that I have is, we have taken time to interview a lot of city officials over the last few weeks. And there are a few more that I know that we said we wanted to interview, particularly elected officials who have to work with the charter all the time. So we still want to get that in. But because we're on a tight timeline, realistically speaking, and we want to start the actual work of revision, deliberation, approval, and showing the people our work, we still have that really important piece of engaging the public and asking and answering questions from the public. Now, all of our meetings are public, and the public can attend our meetings. I'm of the personal opinion that when it comes to something like this, it's a legal document passed through a political process. It's more important for us to go out to the people where they are and engage them on their home turf. And so, because we don't really have the time, and nobody comes to these meetings anyway, for us to ask the public, I'm talking to y'all out there, could we form a committee or two that goes out to, and I put a list of different civic organizations in that document, and this actually comes from the Michigan Municipal League Charter Book, so it's not my idea, like a committee of 2 or 3 of us who go out to the Rotary Club and present on the work that we're doing and answer questions and take feedback and then report back to the full commission. We went to the Rotary Club last week, we went to, we went to such and such church. These are the questions that people had, these are the things that they really care about. We're just reporting out and gather the public feedback in that manner. Would that be, A, legal for the commission to gather information from the public that way by sending a committee? B, would anybody on the commission be interested? I would, because that's what I love to do. I want to be out with the people. So I would volunteer for that in a heartbeat, but I can't be a committee by myself, so.
Well, it's absolutely legal, and I think it's a good idea, and it's something we talked about early on. We didn't necessarily talk about the form of it, but that you would need to do those kind of public outreach things, because the reality is the people aren't going to come to you. You're going to have to go to the people, and it can be through a communications committee type thing like you're talking about there. It could even be by where you hold your meetings. You don't necessarily have to hold them here if you want to combine functions and move, have a moving meeting type of thing, kind of riding the circuit, going different places. They have to be public places, but within the city, if we think it might attract people to engage and participate more. But certainly going out and speaking to civic groups, fraternal societies, that sort of thing. Those are the folks that we have to reach out to and bring on board and help them understand what we're up to and why, if we really want to have a high confidence level that our work is going to be successful and not all be for naught.
I feel like we'll get more feedback, more input.
Absolutely.
If we go out and ask for it and solicit it face to face than if we say, hey, come on in here. And that'll help with the political process later down the line, because people will feel like they were heard and they'll remember those interactions.
And yeah, and I know the mayor would agree with this too. You can hold all the open meetings and all the public meetings you want and talk about things, but some people, until you knock on their door or reach out to them, when something goes wrong, they're going to be storming the castle like, You didn't tell us, you weren't transparent, you kept us in the dark. But we had an open meeting, well, you should have knocked on my door, kind of thing. So we have to make that extra effort we really can't expect people are gonna follow just because we put something on a website and they're gonna follow our weekly progress. It's just not gonna happen. There'll be a few out there, but not most of the people.
Are we able to use our budget to provide like light refreshments? People come out when there's free food. Like they did the coffee with the cop recently, like I don't know how many people came out for that, but like if we can provide, you know, not,
Cheese with the charter.
I
not
think
top
that,
bar,
oh,
whatever.
that's cute.
Coffee with the commission, you know?
Free ice cream, I'll bring the kids too.
Yeah, I don't think that.
The answer to that will
That is so
lie
good.
with checking with finance.
Okay.
Because we're not treated as employees because none of us are being paid.
Right.
So I would say if we probably,
That it's not, you know, for us, it's for the benefit of the people who come to
Yep.
talk to us.
The glitch that we had that took like 3 months to resolve because of the food that we had was because we didn't offer it to the public or put it on our notice or whatever. That was the glitch. So it sounded like to me that we said put it on our notice, and it was intended for them, not for our private dinner or lunch while we were working for 6 hours for free on a Saturday morning. Then it seems like we've solved that situation.
well, I disagree that that was not the reason that we weren't paid back.
What was the reason then? That's what I
Because
remember.
there was public here, even though there weren't many.
Right.
No, what they said was that is not allowed.
It's not.
So then we can provide food, just don't eat it.
So I don't know that we're even
Sounds like-
allowed to provide
Sounds
food.
sounds like, you know, provide refreshments, I'll call
Yeah,
that
so-
water.
I was told it was because it wasn't open to everyone.
That's what I was told
That's what I
too.
was told.
That's what
And
he
I
told
was
me.
told that was not why. So
Yeah.
let's double check with them
Okay.
and just make sure if we, before we go ahead and do it, just to make sure that we're following what we're supposed to be following.
Absolutely.
And if they say, yes, go ahead, then we have their blessing, even though it's our money. Not our money, but it's the people's money.
Yes.
And, yes, that would be my recommendation.
Gina just responded that she's 98% confident that the senior center will be open in the Hunter, which is your first chance to get a spot where people are used to going to anyway, and put a couple signs up on the wall and say, hey, come on Tuesday, we'll be doing this.
Perfect.
So do we get that recorded?
Yeah, well,
Is that-
we'll make adjustments. There's enough room over there.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure. Okay,
Yeah, that's a
But
double,
it's got-
it's a double or triple classroom.
Yeah.
okay,
Move that over.
great, okay, thank you.
So you would need to require a motion to move the meeting to,
I'll move it, we move the meeting, our November 8th Clausen Charter Commission meeting to the Hunter Community Center.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
it's a double whammy for you guys.
Okay, thanks for doing that, August.
I'll confirm by email with you tomorrow. She's at 98%. So-
Okay, 'cause you never know about the two.
100%.
Okay.
Saying there's a chance.
Did everybody get a copy of the proposal that Brad sent out?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. I haven't looked over the whole thing yet, but I appreciate how well laid out it is for
You're
us.
actually a little ahead of the schedule. From what the motion you made today, put us a little ahead of this, that you have, and this
Okay.
breakdown.
Okay.
And also, I've reminded the staff at every staff meeting that October 25th would be a good time to come if they wanted, if anyone we haven't invited wanted to come.
Okay.
I'll keep reminding, I got 2 more times to remind them before that and closer to, so I'll keep doing that.
So Glenn Shepherd responded back to me. He's going to be there.
Okay,
And so is Lou Sampson.
okay.
And the mayor also said any date works for her. So,
I just keep, just to let you know, I keep reminding the staff,
Okay.
like, that's where I have the library and the museum people, and then they're all there.
Okay, great.
Reminding if they want to come, they can come.
Okay.
So,
Do we reach a point where we say, okay, no more, in terms of the staff? I think we should,
Yes,
because otherwise we can't
need to.
proceed.
we need to.
Well, did we talk about,
Well, yeah, it's still open, but like
the meetings are still open, but did we talk about sending an email or a letter out, or what have been trying to, I thought we had said we were going to do something else.
To all employees? Did we talk, I know we talked, I don't remember what conclusion.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah,
Was some kind of email to all
Okay.
That's
employees?
what
And that's what you've been doing,
Reminding them at all the meetings, just to get it by the 25th.
Yep,
You know,
okay.
It's not the last meeting, but it, you know, 'cause this was this one, but,
Right.
you know, I'm trying to push a little bit. Wasn't expecting much response, but, you know, because the people that we wanted to talk to already came, really, that you
Okay.
wanted specifically.
And the people who, maybe we find later or talk to and say, oh, I really wish I could do that, they can always come to our workshops of wherever we're going to be. So we can still invite them if they want to.
It's an ongoing process. I tend to think as a professional fundraiser, I always go for the people I want, and I get them. So when I think about our work as a commission, it's who do we prioritize that we need and want to hear from? And then we go get them and say, we really need you here, because we really need to hear from you. Which is why I used the word elected officials a little while ago, because hearing from council members, the mayor, past council members and mayors, anyone who's served and has had to work under the charter is going to have valuable input, not only for us, but for the public to hear, that helps the process along. And the reason that I talked about going out to the civic organizations and going out to the community by sending a committee to do that and reporting back is that it helps us in these commission meetings move the process along. So it enables us to say, okay, we're done. We don't have to spend several more commission meetings doing interviews. We can have reports out from the committee on the information they've gathered from the public, and we can actually get into the work of the revisions, starting with the easiest stuff that most people would agree to now, and then as we get into the hard stuff, we will have completed all of our fact-finding, and we will have engaged the public. So I would hope that they would be with us at that point when we get into doing the harder work that we need to do. That's the way I envision the process.
Don't mind us doing the meeting, don't mind at all. I just don't think we need the attorney here for this portion of the meeting, or are we keeping him here? Are you okay with staying here? I just didn't think that we were discussing anything.
I'm at your pleasure.
We're almost done, but that's a good point.
Okay.
Dan, did you have something you wanted
No.
to bring up?
Usually it's 15.
No?
Oh.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner comments? No? Okay. Any public comment for items not on the agenda?
On 445 Darby Court. So first of all, thank you all for what you're doing here. And I don't know if this is on or not on the agenda, you just discussed it, but I think it's really important. I really appreciate your engaging all of the many users of this document, right? It's not just the people who live here. Most people who live here don't have an idea of what's in here, nor should they have to, because the people who work here and the people who are elected here should be able to work together to make this city run smoothly so that they don't have to worry about what item anything says, right? But saying that, there's conversation recently that about who is important and who is not important to come here and to share their views. And I just want to say publicly, I'm really happy that you included elected officials, both previous and current, because I feel like there have been the same kind of issues from anyone that I've spoken with, and I've spoken with people who have served here long, long ago. Same kind of struggle, right? Some of the struggles that came about that brought this around in the first place, and that perhaps people don't want other people talking to other people for, because they're personality issues. We're always going to have personality issues, but perspective is everything, right, for what we're dealing with. So I really appreciate your engaging current and past, and I'm just gonna make a public request that someone reach out to people, current and past, in more than just that, like, we got an email, but I'm assuming anyone who has served here that is not currently serving probably has not received an email. And I would also appreciate if you can give the same opportunity to all board and commission members. Not that you have to, you're not gonna get 25 other people to come and wanna speak, but oh my gosh, if you got 25 other people who wanted to come and speak, what a great problem you would have. And I know you want to hit a schedule and get moving, not trying to delay this portion of it, but I feel like this is a really integral part because you guys picked up the document and read it, and everyone has a different opinion on different things. When you're actually working with it and you're working with some of the impediments that are ingrained in it, it has a whole new life, and everyone will have a slightly different slant, and they're gonna sit with different people differently, and I think throughout this process for all of this charter review, the more input you have, the better on all of it, and I just thank you for opening it up for us, but please open it up to people who served in the past and other current board and commission members too. And then most importantly, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Laura, I have one other comment, and it really came about, Brad, from something you were saying and something the mayor just said. I probably can't make the Rotary, the Lions, they probably meet in the day, I still work. However, we still have a planning commission, a zoning board, a recreation commission, those all meet at night. I'd be glad to attend those. That's the place, those people are at least enough, they do more than just sit there and complain, they're trying to do something to make it better for, I'd be willing to serve on a committee that would go to those boards at night and say, here's who we are, here's what we're doing, here's when we meet. So that's a group I think we need to really try to engage because they're already paying more attention than the regular person is.
Yeah.
So we should include them. And only came about from what you said earlier and what the mayor just said came to my mind. Because that's probably, when you add all those people together, you're probably looking at 30 or 40 people.
And I love the idea of, past elected officials because, people who are not currently serving may be, able to be a little more free in their opinions and they've, lived it through different times and might have different perspective that we're not considering.
Is there a list somewhere of past?
Not with like private emails, I mean,
There's some
Yeah.
portraits in the,
like city closet emails.
I would get names, but you wouldn't necessarily have their contact information.
Well, I mean, we can reach Penny Lubes.
Yeah, you can spread the word and tell them to spread the word, and them spread the word.
Like there are people that we can reach out to, personally.
Especially as a council.
Okay.
Do you want that email to all the commission members to invite them to October 25th or November 8th at the?
What do you guys think?
I feel like it's a tall order to ask people to come out on election day, but I don't know, maybe not everyone is.
They might already be out.
I mean, it is possible.
Or maybe
we
do
can vote
both
in
and give
10
them a
minutes to be
choice.
done, but I don't know.
The next two meetings here and here?
Yeah.
Just fine.
Yeah, either one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that way if they can't do it on one, maybe they can on the other.
And if you can just ask them to confirm with you, that way we know who to expect it.
Okay, anything else?
Just make sure they understand that, ask them. Personally, if they want to come out, that you're not proposing a joint meeting with the particular
No,
meeting.
yeah,
Because
no, it's your
that
opinions
creates a
on the
whole
chart.
nother posting and
Yeah, no,
notice
it's not.
issue. Right,
Very
right.
clear.
Okay, so next agenda item, or next agenda items will be vice chair nominations and then anybody who comes for the October 25th and November 8th meeting over, the October 25th meeting here and the November meeting over at the Hunter Community Center. Okay. And if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's always the most popular motion.